Today's guest is Latoya Evans. She's the CEO of Latoyas Public Relations. She's served as senior crisis counsel for companies like, and spokesperson for companies like Walmart, IBM, and Bank of America. Latoya, welcome to the Ace of Spades.
Thank you for having me, David. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I wanted to lay the foundation for this interview by asking, how exactly did you get into public relations?
Well, I got into public relations, honestly, the same way that many people do. I started my career as a journalist. It's a pure writer journalist, and I was working for a number of the publications freelance while I was still an undergrad at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So during that time period, I would go to New York, I would take internships, but I would also work on building my contracts with different magazines. And I ended up getting contracted with both People, Glamour, Woman's World, just a number of the publications. And then once I got to college graduation or really near it, I had a speaker come to my class. It was actually my communications ethics class, one of the last courses that you have to take before you graduate with a degree in journalism at Chapel Hill. And I was really fascinated by the idea that this woman did PR for a big company. At the time, the company was Wachovia. And I thought that was really cool. And I was like, I think I could consider doing it, because I was just now starting to apply to different jobs, and I was getting interest, just getting set up for after graduation, after I graduated undergrad. The next thing I knew, by the time I got to graduation, I had all these offers. I had offers to go to magazines, and I had offers to go to two big PR firms, or I could have gone to the corporation IBM to do internal communications. And that sounded honestly like the better offer. And from then on, I got there and I said, I'll do it for a year until this financial crisis, this recession blows over. And then I'll go back and I'll be in magazines again. That's what I'll do. And I got there and I loved it. I loved doing PR. I loved the thrill of it. And I never thought at the time that anything could ever give me that exact, euphoria, I called it, of being able to see my name in print on a byline in a publication. I remember being able to go to any month, literally go to a Barnes and Noble or any other newsstand and pick up a magazine and see my name in bold. And that was the coolest thing to me. And I never thought anything could replace it. And next thing I knew, it did. It was the same feeling. And from there, I decided to invest in a long-term career in PR. I got my master's in organizational leadership, communications, and crisis management. And I just kept riding the wave. And next thing I knew, I was here.
That's awesome. I was going to ask, is there anything in particular you did to attract the larger PR firms and those big ticket jobs?
What was valuable about me, because we got to think about what time in the world this was. This was 2008. So what was valuable was that I had magazine experience, was that I could write, and I had relationships with all these different media outlets, which is actually pretty easy to transition to PR. Because that means the fundamentals of how the business works. The goals of the people that you're trying to influence once you're a journalist, because you're trying to get them to cover your client or your company's news. And you have the knowledge of just how the things go. So it's not hard to just kind of shift the focus in sitting on the other side of the table. And so that part was actually pretty easy. People saw that value right away. And truth be told, in 2008, a bunch of other publications were closing. And that was actually one of the key reasons why I started to think outside the box, because the summer before that, I remember being in New York City on one of my internships and having a meeting with my dream publication scheduled for that next day. Literally 24 hours, I was going to meet with the biggest editor at this magazine. And that day, that afternoon, the magazine folded. And back then, it was just so unprecedented that these magazines and these print publications were closing. People just didn't understand that they ran publishing so far until there was no more. So unlike other jobs where they go away and you may get your 30 days notice and you may work out those 30 days or nothing. These magazines were being told, these staffers were being told that day that they did not have a job and that they needed to pack up and go home.
Wow.
You know, so like that's the kind of world we lived in 2008. So there was a lot of opportunity because these companies also, same time, same economy, they needed the help because they were suffering too. They were losing money. They were losing executives. This was a very pivotal time for everyone. And they wanted people who had the ability to tell those stories, many of whom were getting laid off from news publications, to come over and help them tell their stories so that they could keep their customers and keep them paying bills and not get consolidated, not get sold. So there was a really, it was like, I hate to say it, but I also love to say it. I like to say that sometimes my communications background looks like Forrest Gump's life, just the way it's like you end up at all these really odd moments in history and time. And it's really at no fault of your own. It's just, oh my God, there you are. And that was the perfect time to make that kind of transition because everything was changing.
Wow. And you were to pull it all together and just accelerate.
Yeah, but I think that took a lot of time and a lot of learning. I went through IBM and I had 2 specific roles during my time there, and eventually went on to write for the inventor of the IBM PC, the inventor of LASIK. And this was all at IBM. And then when I moved to my global external media role as a spokesperson for the company, I support the CTO and the data center business in Asia and Europe and throughout. So you're also talking about being able to understand a lot of technical things and to be able to tell that story in a time where the world really wasn't investing in technology like that. That's why the global aspect was so important, because when I look back on that time period, there was this big emphasis on mobile technology because China was so far ahead of the US in terms of technological innovations. So having to kind of go through those periods and see the world change while you're in a safe enough position that you get to learn the things that you need to, because during that time, a lot of the kids that I went to undergrad with, they didn't get jobs. They didn't get jobs that year, and some of them didn't get jobs for 2 or 3 years. So I was in a very fortunate position, and by the time they, did get roles, I had finished my master's degree because I was in a 2-year program. I deferred my first year, and I worked full-time that first year, and then I became a full-time employee, full-time student. I was still doing some writing and, journalism work on the side while still learning the PR game. And then I moved on to the next few companies. And it was always a gradual shift in terms of how the world really worked. Like, for instance, when I was at Walmart corporate in Arkansas, I moved back home to North Carolina, and started my role at Bank of America. So there were all these other factors that kind of focused in to lead me down that path. So it was definitely a divine path to walk that I couldn't have written myself. I was truly blessed in, being able to have this course that was somewhat charted for me, just because of different things happening in the world at different times.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say that. You definitely, like, looking at your resume, you definitely seem like a magnet, just attracting these people to work with you, because it just looks like all glory. So I just wanted to ask, with your company, do you take on more than one client at a time?
Oh God, you have to.
Okay.
You have to. That's not how it works. And I think that I always have a lot of pots boiling. So typically I may have anywhere between, like, a low side for me is like having 4 or 5 clients, but I may also have, 8 or 9, and I have a nice team. There are 4 people who work in my business, and then I take other consultancy opportunities as clients and different things like that. So I always have a number of different things going on, and it's always a wide range. Like right now I have 2 restaurants that I do PR for that are essentially very different locations, very different stories behind them, but they all have incredible opportunities. I've got so many other things, of course, with different campaigns and I also represent a number of pretty big personalities and people, and that's always the case. And, there's a lot of discretion that comes with that. And I think that one of the things that it's a funny question you ask, because I do have the benefit of being able to display some of the things that I do on social media, but my most incredible work is the work that no one ever gets to see. It's celebrities that I work with that, there are confidentiality agreements and NDAs in place. And that's also true with, the corporations that I've worked with. The best stories I've worked on are the ones that don't exist. They're the ones that I've been able to, not get in the press, because I've been able to effectively protect my client or the corporation that I've worked for, and mitigated the risk. It's the stories that have posted at 8 a.m. and by 9 a.m. they say something different, because I've been able to get in there and reposition it and call reporters out for misreporting or ethics or things like that. That's the times that I feel like I truly shine. I say that people really think I'm a magician, which is great. But at the same time, it's always some major challenge in my world in which I have to be able to quickly shift gears and to service a lot of people, at once. It's literally in a day, I can go from writing a speech for a politician to solving a crisis for a big name client to getting another client signed on a TV show. And that did happen, all three of those things in one day. And this week, so it's not that I'm someone who's able to do a lot in a very short period of time, and I'm able to meet my goals. And I'm very blessed to be able to do that.
Gotcha. So you're literally like a superhero, saving the world and no one knows.
It feels like that. So my days are very long. Like, you follow me on social media, so you get to see me wake up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I call my mornings my writing time so that I can kind of get things out the door. I can email reporters, I can write speeches, I can write releases if I need to, I can give instruction to my staff so that when they figure out what time they're going to start, getting things together, they have very clear directions of what they need from me. And then it's space time. Of course, a lot of what I do is being out in the community, it's being at events, it's staffing press, it's, being visible to people, and that's around the time that usually happens. And then there's also events that go into the evening, and a lot of people don't think about it this way, but I go to a number of galas and things like that, but it's pretty much all work. Or even if I go on a trip, it's work, and I'm someone who's able to always pretty much find the balance. So it looks really fun, but at the end of the day, if I'm somewhere, there's definitely somewhere down that line, some professional reason for me to be there. There's definitely a check on the other end of that event. Like I love to say, I have no free time. That means every moment of mine is either bought by someone else or it is bought by me, and I get to be able to spend those few hours that I get alone with whom I want to spend them with, doing what I want to do. And those are kind of off limits, but it's like when I say I'm committed or I say I'm busy, that's really what I mean. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. It has never ended. And I think the main reason that is like when we talked about when I first got into the industry, even starting back when I was a journalist, like 2005, back then, between 2005, 2008, social media was still kind of in its infancy. Mm-hmm. Now I can wake up and a tweet has changed the course of my day dramatically. That happened this week too. It's not hard for it to happen, and you have to be able to be nimble enough to say, okay, I got to figure out a game plan quickly. I have to figure out how will I attack this, or how can I use this to my benefit? And how do I also get the other things that have to get done today done?
Well, and it brings up a good question. I was going to ask you on this. So if you're managing multiple clients and everyone's business, they're unique, what is there like a series of steps, or is it like tailored to each business? How do you maintain organization around these individual companies?
So I think because I am a Gemini, which I realize the older I get, the more important it is to understand like what kind of person you are, not just who you are. I'm someone who is able, like I say, to boil a lot of pots at one time. It's incredible. I don't really know how I do it, but every client has a very individualized strategy. So when I start off with people and I meet with them and I consult, from then on, I build strategies around what I would do and where I see the holes in their business and where I see the biggest strategy that I could create and where I could make an impact based off what I know, who I know, and what I've studied and researched about the company. That's also why none of my consults are free, because it takes that much time to create, listen to a person for an hour, understand where they're coming from, and say, okay, here's where I can execute. Here's where I can be of value to you. So no situation is alike, as you can imagine. It just can't be. So in the situations, it's always different. So everything is customized per client. So when I sit down and I work with different people, everyone has a different goals. And one of the main questions that I ask my clients before I take them on is, who do you want to be? Because this is the number one thing that you can help from a PR perspective if you understand where you're trying to get. Because I can make you, I sell popularity for a living. I can make you pop and I can make you appear to be popping. I can do both of those things. But if it's not where you want it, then I've not been successful. Like I remember I had a client and our contract was coming to an end. And she says to me, and it was a work where, the client was pretty social media popular and trying to mainstream them and make them more, real life popular, where people know you outside of the internet, which is a challenge for a number of people that have built internet businesses, because people never want to be reliant on Instagram or Facebook for their business. And, that's a real, people understand that as a concern. So it's not uncommon. So working with this client toward the end of our agreement, she says, yeah, I think we were so successful. I even got some new followers, but the work that I was doing for her was never about followers. I was talking to a completely different audience, so there was a valuable lesson in that, is that I had a specific goal and we were aligned on that, but that wasn't going to necessarily mean you were going to get new followers on Instagram, because this wasn't a strategy for Instagram. I can absolutely do that if that's what you want me to do. My influencer programs are also very popular with clients. So people who have businesses or brands or products, I call it culting the brand. And it's something that I've done for actually a number of really big brands in terms of creating influencer strategies, even before social media. Believe it or not, we used to do them in real life without the internet. We used to have influencer programs in which, everyone goes to your business, everyone consumes your products or services, and only the cool people do it. I go and I sign celebrities and I sign influencers long-term contracts with brands. And it makes it look like they love these brands. And that's part of what I do too. So it's not just traditional media. Everybody is different, is my point. It's just about making sure that you guys align on your goals.
Wow. Okay. I want to ask, so as far as in your career, what would you say would be like a pivotal turning point for you?
I think there are so many pivotal turning points. Honestly, if I had to be honest and talk about a pivotal turning point in my career, I would have to say when I finally realized that not only was I just really, really good at what I did in corporate America and the work I did and besting my peers, many of whom would be twice my age and leading, I started to really understand the impact of who I was. And, this is something I talk about a lot on social media. If I may be vulnerable, sometimes you don't get to fit in a box. Everybody's not for fitting in boxes. And, it was a hard lesson for me because, I've spent most of my career in corporate America and will probably still spend, a substantial amount of my career there. I'm still pretty young. So It was understanding that not everybody wants or is okay with you not fitting in a box. And I think that that's one of the challenging parts about when you're smart and you're good and you have potential. People see that. Your enemies are the first people to know that you're valuable. Even if you haven't figured out that you have a purpose yet, your enemies know way before you. You know, think about that, like even in the biblical sense or through history. How many people have tried to kill children because of their impact or their value? They already can see what they're going to be. And I think that as we, as adults and then people as our careers, we have to understand that some of the roadblocks or some of the challenges or some of the passive aggressive, behaviors or all these different things that we experience in very corporate settings where we're the minorities, they're by design. And when you start to feel that in some way you're alienated in those environments, that's when it's time to start shifting. You know, people do a lot for self-preservation and people forget to self-preserve, especially when you're in spaces where you're a minority. And it's something that I love to tell people, because as we think about these different spaces and the political climate that we live in now, entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to be the end all be all for you, but what it has been for me is an incredible safety net. It has been an option out if I'm in spaces where I don't feel like I'm wanted or I don't feel like it's valuable. I don't have to be able to go to a job every day and acquiesce if I don't feel that that's where I belong. And I think having that freedom is important, and having the option is important, because fitting into a box that people want you to be in every day is not healthy for anyone. It's not healthy for anyone's mental health. And I wish that people would understand that. And it's a lesson that I've learned, and I've learned it through trial and error. And it's one that I'm glad to have. When I first started, even as an adjunct professor at a college, it was really, and for me at the time, it was really about giving back and being able to expand in a different way. But what it also provided me was, hey, if you want to go and one day be a tenure track professor, you can do that. So it's about having options. And the moment that I understood that and wasn't so set on, let me completely have a corporate job and always follow that path, and that's the only path and that's the only way, opportunities just came. It was just a mental shift.
Wow. That, I'm going to add that to like my list of quotes for 2020. I love that. Your enemies know your value before you do. I really love that.
Well, I think it's true, because when you think about it, and all of us have been, I think, in this situation before, where all of a sudden people are hostile toward you and you don't know why. You can't figure it out. You go back over your interactions with them and you try to figure out where things went south. It wasn't anything you said or did. All you had to do was show up. Mm. And in that, you intimidate people. In that, by speaking your truth and by, being assertive and being smart and, asking questions and not being a lackey, in that, people see that you're worth more and that you're doing more. You may be smarter than your boss. You may be more influential than your boss. And it's something that people don't like to say, but it's the truth. And when you find yourself in those situations, you need to make sure that you're taken care of.
I love that. So for looking out into the future, what would you say would be like the plans for your company? Is it like a global plan, excuse me?
Honestly, when I think about the plans for my companies, I mean, any plan that I've ever had has been just that. It's been real cute. And I say that because this is going to probably sound insane to some people, especially people who follow me or know me, but I don't have a plan. I mean, and that's because I think that God's plans are bigger and better than anything I can come up with. And I trust him to steer this ship and to guide my steps. And that's kind of the space that I've been operating in. Just the same way as I said with my corporate career, one thing led to another. I didn't always create those movements. It was, a mysterious this or a mysterious opportunity or the company's being sold and a company calls me the day I find out. And, you know, I trusted that roadmap, and I found that I had my most challenging times when I tried to take control. You know, I really focus on letting God direct my path and letting that really be the thing. But so far, especially since I've been back full time in my business, I've gotten clients that I would have only dreamed of having. I've been getting opportunities that I'm just like, am I big enough for that? Like, you know, it's like, don't you want a bigger agency, or don't you want somebody else? And it's like, no, it's I want you. And I think that that's what happens when you're called to do something and when it's your divine purpose. So I expect I tell myself, you know, I'm going to ride my own wave, and I'm going to be humble about the opportunities that I get. I'm going to be smart and discriminating. I mean, those are some things that I've also had to learn. Having a business is that every client's not for you. Everyone is not for you. Everyone's money is not good. And when you get that gut and that gut feeling, like in the beginning, that something isn't for you, then it's probably not. And that's a lesson that, you know, I've had to learn, because I've ignored that voice in my head, because I'm like, ooh, another contract. Is like, no, sis, that contract could be more detrimental to you in ways that are just far beyond money. Because here's a challenge. You know, everyone that I work with and everyone that I deal with over a track record in time, that is what you have. You have other people's experiences with you and your company that help to build the reputation. If you sense within yourself that a client isn't going to align to your brand, or they're not going to align in a way where they're going to actually listen to your advice and counsel so that they can be successful, because PR is a two-way street. You know, I can pitch all day until I'm blue in the face, but guess what? I'm not going to get you media coverage or attention if your product sucks, or if your event is bad and you have bad speakers. So when I give that counsel, you know, and people don't listen, it reflects on me, because where people want to know, where's the media, where's the press? You know, so I have to be able to have that sort of influence with that client, and they have to trust me. So if I'm got a contract on the table and I don't feel like that person is going to be coachable, then it's not a deal for me. It has more potential to hurt me than help me.
It's beautiful. I love that. This is definitely going to be my favorite interview of the day, I can tell.
Oh, good. I walked away from some coins. I walked away from some money, and you know, you ask yourself, but every time I feel like I should have listened to my gut and I didn't, or I should have listened to God or listened to the universe and I didn't. I got to pay for it. You know, so after a while you listen. Just as, you know, your mom says, what, hard head? So
Yeah.
wow, you learn.
Okay, that's a perfect segue into my next question. What do you feel is directly responsible for your success, or who?
I think, you know, not to sound like I'm completely in church, I definitely think, I don't think it's me. I think that I've had some really good experiences that have given me the skill set and the knowledge that I need to be successful. But I think that it's been the charting of the course, which I don't really have anything to do with. You know, so I've been very fortunate and very blessed. But in terms of people who have really helped to inspire me and pour into me, my sister is my best friend. You know, she is someone who I feel like is put on this earth in part to make sure that I stay on task. Like, that's what she does. I mean, she's 8 years older than me, and she's someone, you know, she's been there and done that. And, you know, I literally think that like, she is not just tied to my purpose, but her purpose, a great part of it has to do with making sure that I do what I'm supposed to do, because I can't fulfill my purpose unless I stay on task and stay on course. And I have to. And that's one of the things that I've really understood about my life is it's not about me. You know, a lot of the things that I have and a lot of the things that I've been blessed to experience and do, they are completely for his use. Like, they are completely to help encourage other people and other women who come from towns like I did, who have friends who died like I did, or who didn't have the opportunity to go to college or make it or those are the people that my life is for. It is in many places, in many opportunities, it's for people to see, and I think that that's why I got the hashtag, love my little life. And the reason why that exists was because, I never anticipated my life to be big, and people didn't. It was supposed to always be small. It was never supposed to be a big deal. I was never supposed to be anything like who I am today, because that's what the world said. And, I've had the opportunity to live differently. And I think that that's what it is that this is the little life that was designed to be very big. And so when I also think about other people who have really helped me, I mean, obviously my mother has contributed so much investment in me. So it's an opportunity anytime I get to do anything for her, and my father and my uncles, who are all incredible businessmen, to be able to not just say, oh God, there's someone that I know that's successful, but to know someone from your own family has done incredible things. They've been historic. They've done great things. That's really encouraging as well.
Awesome. My final question I wanted to ask, if someone was looking to get into PR, what advice would you give them?
Definitely go someplace and learn. I think that that's the most valuable thing about me, is that, of course, having the background as a journalist, I think that gives me an edge. But when I think about going into PR, I learned so much. Some of the people that I look up to the most in my industry are from my first job at IBM. They're from the earlier stages. They're from people I work with at Walmart corporate. Those are the people that I really got to learn from and understand. And it gives me great pride to see that they're proud of me and that they have really been, excited. In fact, I had one of the women that, really took me under her wing early in my career. She said last night, so tell me you have an answer for this controversial issue that one of your clients is having. I was like, oh my God, this is a pop quiz and I've had a cocktail. I can't do it. One of the people I respect the most in the industry, I was like, I got to get back to you tomorrow. Like, I can't do quizzes for you right now. So the idea that they still get to keep me on my toes, and some of them I haven't seen in real life in 10 years, that's crazy, and I think that once you get to see someone for, what they can do and their skill set, and you get to learn from them, that admiration is always there. And I think that is really valuable because I keep learning from them. I get to see them practice and I get to see their work out in the world. And I think that's pretty cool.
Real cool. Well, Latoya, I appreciate your time today. And I wanted to ask, is there a specific way or the best way to get in contact with you, just for the viewers?
Definitely. So I would say my personal Instagram, which is the one that I'm most active on, something I probably should change, but Instagram at Latoya S. Evans. My business Instagram is at Latoya Evans PR. And then I would definitely say, of course, you can go to my website, latoyasevans.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm a very easy person to find.
Yeah, that's the PR. So.
Right. I always say to people when I'm out and about and they say, I know you from somewhere. I say, it could be anywhere. Let's just not even try to figure out where you know me from. Let's just say you've seen me. Like, right. I'm very hard to miss.
That's beautiful. Well, I thank you for your time, and definitely appreciate it. You have done absolutely amazing. Like I said, this is
thank you. I hope it's pleasure. Good.
No, this has been a complete pleasure. This is like, I love this interview. So,
and thank you for allowing me to get my makeup done on a Saturday.
So. Oh, anytime I can help.
Okay. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Okay, chat soon.
Okay, bye.